I challenge you to a duel.
Hello, and welcome back to the Movie Duel podcast with me, Liam, and my co-host, Peter.
Hello there.
How you doing, Pete? How's things going?
Not too bad. I'm currently sweating my weight off in this
rather warm,
blistering heat.
Yeah.
It's hotter than Satan's crotch, as they say. Or hotter than a housewife reading 50 Shades of Grey at a Magic Mike show.
Oh, that's pretty hot. Been watching any movies this week?
Not other than the two that we're going to discuss today, really. Because one of them, your choice, I'd not seen, so it was a first time viewing for me, so I had to obviously make sure I got that in.
Okay, cool, that's exciting.
I did make a start on watching Moonfall.
Wow.
Yes. Which started off really badly, sort of picked up in the middle.
Yeah.
And then there was a point in the last 20 minutes I just thought, no, this is gash, and stopped watching.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I haven't seen it, but I'm fairly certain it is shit.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of major missteps in that film. I would not recommend it.
No, I won't be going to see it. It's weird, like Roland Emmerich, he just keeps making the same disaster movies over and over again. Like, why don't you just do something different? Really?
Well, that's it. It's the thing is, I know you haven't seen it, but it's sort of a mashup of 2012 and Independence Day 2. It's just a weird.
Yeah.
It's like it's just got no originality to it whatsoever.
I guess people must be watching them though, because he keeps getting this money to make them. So
Well, I mean, it's streaming into it as well, so I think that helps to get the numbers.
I bet it had a fair budget though. I bet it was.
I wouldn't have thought so. No, I mean it's pretty. I mean, there's a lot of shots. It's shot really nicely. It looks pretty cool, but there's just no. The story's really poor. The acting's all right, but just some of the characters are just terrible. It's awful.
Well, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. So,
Indeed.
yeah, it looked nice, but anyway. I also have just watched the two choices that we have picked this week, but I also have watched a couple of documentaries on Netflix, and I do quite like their documentaries. They seem to be pretty decent, some of the stuff on there. One was the documentary about Woodstock '99.
Oh yeah, I've got that on my watch list. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty decent. It was good. And the other one was, I think it's like I Killed My Dad or I Killed My Father.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it was all right. Yeah, it's not too bad. So they were interesting.
I'd be interested in that Woodstock. Do they interview sort of Fred Durst?
They do, but from what I remember, I'm certain it's just they interview him literally as he's just come off the stage.
All right, okay. Not now when he's looking like he's in hiding.
No, yeah. But they did interview. I don't know the guy's name, but like the lead singer of Korn. Like I used to like Korn when I was a teenager, but now just cringe.
When you were an angster teenager.
Yeah, when I had the big baggy jeans and wanted to be a skater, rocker, and ugh. Oh, and Fatboy Slim. Fatboy Slim's there. They interview him. That was yeah. But yeah, it's worth a watch. I would definitely recommend it. They do have some good documentaries on there.
The only other thing I started watching this week on your recommendation actually was The Boys. I watched the first episode in a bit.
Wicked. Well, obviously it's a TV show. It's not a movie, and we won't talk about it too much, I guess. But what do you think? Did you like it?
It got me fairly interested. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I've been missing sort of very depressing, sort of angry, not very nice kind of dramas in my life since Game of Thrones and finished and Walking Dead got shit. So yeah, we'll give it a go. I'll give it a college try.
Well, let me know how you get on. I think you'll enjoy it. It's very silly and very depressing, and it's a lot of fun. Right, anyway, enough with the pleasantries. We shall commence talking about our movies that we've picked.
Indeed. Your choice.
Yes.
Your choice this week.
Yes, my choice. So, the theme or the subject I picked is best Stephen King movie that has Stephen King in it. So, it has to be based on a work by Stephen King or a screenplay by Stephen King. And he also has to have either a cameo in it or be in it. Pretty much all the movies he's in are cameos. I don't think there's really one that is like a full proper role. Maybe one of the ones we're talking about, but it's more of an anthology segment type thing. So I thought it kind of made it a little bit interesting because obviously some of the best Stephen King movies are ones like Shawshank, Misery, Stand By Me, ones that don't really have him in it. So it kind of limited the field of films to pick from and maybe had to make us think about what might be the best ones. So would you like to tell the good people your pick, Pete? The first movie we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a little bit of a tough choice because for one, there wasn't a lot that I'd actually seen. So there was only really two choices, which I'll go into, obviously, once we've finished discussing and other things I might have picked. But the movie I went for was Pet Sematary from 1989, directed by Mary Lambert, starring Dale Midkiff, the strangest surname ever. I keep wanting to say midriff. But Dale Midkiff, Denise Crosby, Fred Gwynne, and of course, Mr. Stephen King.
What is this place?
I brought you here to bury Alan's cat.
Daddy, is church all right?
Why, Judd?
I had my reasons.
I dreamed he got hit by a car and you and Mr. Crandall buried him in the pet cemetery.
What did we do tonight, Judd?
What we did, Lois, was a secret.
So the story of Pet Sematary is that after tragedy strikes, a grieving father discovers an ancient burial ground behind his home with powers to raise the dead. Based on the 1983 novel of the same name, one of King's sort of earlier works. Inspired by the death of his daughter's cat, the story of Monkey's Paw as well. He said he's taken a lot of inspiration from that. Sort of wishes. The story of Monkey's Paw is somebody finds a monkey's paw that grants wishes, but the wishes come at a price. And King has actually stated that this novel is, out of all of his written work, it's genuinely scared him the most. And you can see that there's not a lot of great films with Stephen King cameos. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to argue that Pet Sematary is a fantastic film, 5-star film. But, as we'll get into, it does horror very, very well. So I can see, you can see. I've looked at some interviews with King, and his sort of feelings about it, and obviously it's about his family. Really, it's based on members of his family and tragedies that sort of befell them. So his daughter's cat was run over. He was doing a residency at a university in I forget where it was. I think it was somewhere in Maine, though, I think. And he got this house on the highway. His daughter's cat got run over, and the pet cemetery at the back of the house. And then his son very nearly sort of wandered into the highway and got run over. But luckily, obviously, he didn't. So as I said, it's directed by Mary Lambert. She's got quite a strange filmography, really. She sort of found fame pre-Pet Sematary with the Like a Prayer video for Madonna and a few other sort of music videos. But then if you look a bit further down her filmography, you've got things like Urban Legend, Bloody Mary, which I don't think I've seen.
I haven't seen either of them.
I've seen one of the sequels, but I don't think I've seen Bloody Mary. I've definitely seen, I think it's the second one, but that's by the by. And then a really random one, Mega Python versus Gatoroid.
Okay, well.
But then other than that, I think she's done episodes of The Blacklist, some
I think quite recently she's done a lot of TV, I think, hasn't she? I mean, I haven't looked too much into her filmography, but from what I have seen, that she's done a lot of TV.
But there is, I don't think it's not, the direction isn't necessarily something I would point at as being fantastic in the film. It's quite ordinary. There's not a great deal of fantastic sort of shots in there. There's one or two that are really good. And obviously the screenplay is also written by Stephen King. And you can sort of tell that he perhaps sort of struggles with that a little bit. Especially, I don't know whether that's just condensing the story down. In all honesty, it's not a book I've read. I do struggle a little bit with Stephen King.
Yeah, I haven't read it either. I do have it. I have a big stack of Stephen King books that I would like to get through at some point. So it is on my reading list. I will admit that I haven't read the book either. I only know it from the film.
I think you can certainly tell in the film that there's a lot of subplots. There's a lot of things that don't quite get fleshed out. You can see that they're bubbling on the surface. You've got Zelda, you've got Judd's backstory, all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure that's, knowing Stephen King and the books that I have read of his, they're going to be sort of massively fleshed out in that book. I think the script may be trying to do a little bit too much. There's one maybe a little bit in there that could be sort of taken out. But again, we'll discuss this as we go on. And obviously King plays the priest at Mrs. funeral, quite possibly the world's most depressing housekeeper.
Going to get his
nuts cut, yes. Thank you, Missy, for introducing that colorful phrase into my daughter's vocabulary.
Don't mention it.
Who I immediately recognise as Mrs. Paddock from the X-Files from Die Handy Willits.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Which is a fantastic
well done.
episode.
I would have had to look that up because I was like, it was bugging me. I know this woman. And yeah, well done. Well, actually, can we just play a little, 6 degrees of X-Files or something? Because in our episode last week, when we were talking about Predator 2, the lady who does the testing on the Predator weapon that Harrigan finds, she's in an episode of X-Files too. And I can't remember the name of the episode, I'm sure you will, but it's the one with the little boy who they think is possessed.
It is the Calasari.
His little sister's...
Calasari. Yes, she is. She's Golda. Yes.
Yeah, she's the grandma, yeah.
Fantastic.
But anyway, sorry.
I was thinking I knew her from somewhere as well, and my research never quite got that far with that. But I mean, it is a bit of a bizarre film. It's almost got a sort of family TV movie kind of vibe to it. You've got that.
Do you think that comes from the fact that the acting is maybe not so strong?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
There are two really sort of standout poor performances in this film, and unfortunately one of them is Dale Midriff, or whatever his name is. He is. I don't know. I couldn't find anything on it, but it almost looks like he's been dubbed.
Okay.
If you looked
I found him to be a bit wooden.
Oh, he's incredibly. He goes from sort of 0 to 10 in the emotional scenes.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't believe. I don't know whether that was intentional or not, but it was. It's not great.
Don't shilly-shally, Lewis. Give the little girl a promise.
Church will be fine. I promise.
Yay!
Denise Crosby as Rachel isn't fantastic either.
She's just dreaming of them days when she was in Star Trek.
On my home planet, there was so much poverty and violence that for some, the only escape was through drugs.
Yeah. Well, I've got an interesting little side story here for you because she directly relates to the first time I ever cried watching a TV program.
All right, okay.
When her character died, I'd only been about 8, I think, something like that. But when her character died in Next Generation, I cried.
Yeah.
As a little boy.
Yeah.
So there you go.
She gets killed by that muck monster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was never a huge Star Trek fan at all. But I do remember sort of watching that. I couldn't name very much about sort of the TV series at all, but I do have a vivid memory of that really upsetting me.
I think I was in such need of sci-fi that like I would take it whatever I could get, and that was Next Gen. But I do appreciate it now I'm older.
To be fair, whenever it's sort of on and I sort of pick up on it, and I'll just maybe sit and watch a bit of something that's on or whatever on the horror channel, because it seems to be on there like all the time. I'll sit and watch it, but I've never been a big Trekkie, to be fair.
No, me neither.
But yeah, you sort of it starts this. It's the start of the film. I think it really sort of sets it out. Is you've got this sort of scanning through the pet cemetery, all the headstones that have been made for the pets and everything else, and then you've got these really terrible voiceovers of the kids reading the tombstones and things like that, and things written on the tombstones like "Biffa, Biffa, a hell of a sniffer."
I'm gonna go on the line and say that those might be actual things from the book. I imagine.
I would imagine so. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, going back to the performances, probably the best performance in the film is Fred Gwynne as Judd.
Okay.
Judd.
Judd Crandall. I live just across the road. You want to watch out for that road. Them damn trucks go back and forth all day and most of the night.
Probably a story that will come up quite a bit, to be fair, is my sort of real introduction to sort of sci-fi and horror and monster movies and things like that was through my grandma. She absolutely loved anything sort of monster movies and sci-fi. So she used to watch a lot. I used to watch a lot of the old sort of TV programs like Battlestar Galactica, The A-Team, not UFO, what's it called? The Invaders. And one of the things that we always used to watch was The Munsters.
Yeah.
So that was my sort of knowledge of Fred Gwynne. I can't really think of anything other than my cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
He's the judge in that as
That's
well.
what I was gonna. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I also used to watch The Munsters, and I noticed him when I remember the first time I watched My Cousin Vinny, and I was like, oh my god, it's him from The Munsters.
It's Herman Munster.
Yeah.
Another little side note. I know we're getting away from Pet Sematary here.
Well.
It is one of my proudest moments at a pub quiz. The question was, what American TV show was the first to show a married couple in bed? And I plumbed for The Munsters, and it was right.
Oh, okay.
First ever.
Okay.
Because I vividly remember those sort of, obviously they're not doing anything, they're just sat in bed like the two Ronnies, or not the two Ronnies, who was it, Morecambe and Wise, and just having a conversation about what's happened or whatever. But yeah, there you go. Didn't win the quiz, but never mind. But yeah, I mean, in terms of performances, you then got Blake Badal, Ellie Creed.
Oh no, sorry.
No, Ellie Creed.
Ellie Creed.
Miss Ellie.
I think you're going to be just as happy as a clam here, Ellen Creed.
Our clam's really happy.
Who actually can sort of on the surface look like a bit of just a standard sort of kids performance and that, but I think she's actually better than most of the adults in this.
Okay.
It's very sort of, having a daughter who's around the same age as her, it does come across very sort of realistic, because that's the kind she says the kind of things that a kid of that age would say, and keep talking about it, and it just comes across very realistic. That might be just to me, because that's my daughter is very much like Ellie. She's very sort of passionate and overthinks things. It could just be that's what kids do at that age. It's the first time I've had a child that age, so who knows?
Well, I hate to say this, because I didn't like her at all. I hated her. Ellie, not your daughter. I mean, I'm just like, I did not like her. I wish that the truck had run over her.
Oh dear.
Which is what they do in the remake. It
is. I was going to talk about the remake at the end. Yeah, it's. I've not seen it. I've seen some clips and stuff, but I don't know.
I've seen it.
I might. All right, fair enough. And then you've got Mika Hughes, who plays Gage.
Okay, Gage.
Good God, it sounds this is coming off terrible, isn't it? It's like I've not done any research at all. Gage,
yeah.
You're flying it.
Mr. Kite!
You got it. Gage is flying it. You got it?
It was pretty good, to be fair.
I agree. He's really good in this. I think he's the best actor in it.
Yeah, so it is just very strange. I don't think there's you've got a standout performance really probably for Ed Gwynn, but that's he's doing the best with what he's got really. And then last but not least, you've got Brad Greenquist, who plays Victor Pascal, who is quite possibly the worst prognosticating ghost ever in the world.
It's the end of the line for me too. I'm not allowed any further.
I'm sure things will be fine.
I'm not.
But it's like the early scenes with him. He's sort of playing up to being a ghost. He knows he's spooking out. The dad. He's playing with him a little bit. It's a little bit sort of shaky that it's I want to help you because you tried to help me and everything else. But you do get sort of some pictures of him when he was alive, and he actually looks better dead.
Yeah.
This guy.
Is he supposed to be a teenager? Because it's weird. He looks like a 40-year-old man in that picture on his file. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of but I don't really get. I mean, it might be an American thing, but I don't really get the whole sort of setup with Lewis Creed being the doctor at a school. But you sort of assume that it's going to be a medical school, but it's not because they call for an ambulance. You think, well, I don't know. I don't know what the setup is. Maybe it's explained in the book, but
it's funny when I got into the rewatch because I hadn't seen this film for quite some time, and it always used to scare me when I was a kid, and it still does. It's still pretty scary. I think it holds up, but I used to be really scared of that guy, that Victor Pascal guy. Like, and I love when Denise Crosby is saying, I hope you have a first good day at school, Doc. And then it's an instant cut to this kid's smashed open cranium and his brain's falling out. It's just, I really like it.
But yeah, it's you obviously get the part where Church meets his demise and gets peeled off the frosty ground. That is a point where you sort of think, because he obviously sort of peels him off, and then it's referenced later on, isn't it, that he's. Judd says something about the sound he made when you scraped him off the floor. And then they go to the pet cemetery, past the pet cemetery, which is fucking miles. I'd have walked back. I think I'd have said, I'll just explain to her cat's dead. At one point.
Sod that. I'm really surprised that old guy made it all the way up there.
Yeah, but then obviously, it's movie magic in it because it takes him about a day to go there the first time, and when he takes his son, it's about 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that far at all.
Yeah, with a kid's body as well.
Yeah, and I bet he wasn't light.
But I like the little when he falls. I guess I lost my happy thoughts and his MAGA hat. Well, he nearly did. But Fred Gwynn again gets all those sort of it's quite a little sort of nuanced performance really, because he's obviously this sort of kindly old man, but he's very quickly got that sort of dark side to him, and you don't really know whether you can sort of trust him. But he's definitely got the best of intentions, hasn't he? But it's just all goes horribly wrong.
There was one scene I felt like it felt a little bit weird and uncomfortable, and like I don't know whether his acting was not great in that one scene or whether it was because him acting opposite Mr. Wooden guy, it was really bad. But it was after Cage gets hit by the truck, and he's being really emotional, saying like it's his fault that he died, and he sort of gently but firmly at the same time slams his fist on the kitchen table, and he sort of like starts to cry but stops himself. I just felt like it was a little bit weird.
You're telling me that place knew Gage was going to die?
I'm saying the place might have made Gage die because I introduced you to the power. I may have murdered your son, Louis.
But I don't know whether that was just because Matey Boy was just doing nothing.
I think it's I sort of read that scene as he knows whatever he does now, he's not going to stop this man taking his kid.
Yeah.
up to, because he starts with the whole, Dad is better.
Yeah.
And each time he says it about 3 times within that little speech, because he's talking to him and he knows every time he says Dad is better, it gets lower and lower. And he's like, Dad is better, and it's just he knows whatever he says he's not gonna make a difference, and he knows he's already shown him it with the cat, and it's just not gonna work, and he knows it's not gonna have a happy ending at that point. That's the way. If you read it like that, it's quite a good little scene, I think.
Yeah.
But obviously we sort of have the worst attempt at raking leaves as well before he meets the undead church.
He just sort of fucking gives up.
Yeah, it's so sort of like I don't know if that's sort of meant to be the scene. He's just like, but I've had days like that. To be fair, if I'd had to tidy the garden, I'll just fuck it, I'll have a beer. Yeah. There's a lot of beer on hand for this film. To be fair, the judge's got a well stacked. Stacked fridge.
He's doing good.
That you, Doc?
Yeah, it's me.
Well, come on up and have a beer.
But obviously, you've got that. There's lots of little bits in this that I like. Like Judd talks about that. Ellie learning about death, and he wanted to spare her from having to learn about death, and then obviously the next big thing that happens is that Missy kills herself, and she learns about death anyway. Yeah. So it all could have just been avoided. Sorry. And yeah, the cat stinks. I'll not insert any joke into that, but
God, I'm trying so hard not to.
We got smelly pussy.
I do like that. The cat's back, but she's not that she knows it went away, but she's just bothered about the fact that it stinks. And then really, it's the whole film from there. Really, it really ramps up. And this sort of the next bit, Gage's death, it's something I remember watching the first time watching this, and obviously it's not a very nice scene. But watching it, I think a couple of years ago, I'd watched it for the first time in a long time since I'd had kids, and it was just a very difficult scene to watch because anybody who has toddlers about, you only have to take your eyes off them for a second. So it's a very sort of real worry for parents that you could take your eyes off them and something happen, kind of thing. So not to get all deep and emotional about it, but it was one of the 2 very difficult scenes to watch for me, compared to, like I say, when I was younger and watching it, and it not really, obviously, like I say, it's not nice.
Yeah, but
it just affected me in a completely
This might sound a little
way.
bit weird, but because it's a kid getting hit by a big semi-truck sort of thing, I kind of feel like it's done in a tasteful way.
Yeah,
like just the fact that you kind of see the truck just about to come to Gage, and then you just see that little tiny shoe in slow motion rolling across the tarmac with that little bit of blood on it, and it's just that's all you need to see, and it's just seeing that little shoe flopping about. It's like I don't have kids or anything, but I found it a little bit horrible to watch. It was, and especially when these Polaroids just start coming out of like when Cage was born, and all these like family moments, and then all that's gone now.
But that's it. It's almost like that's it. That's all you've got left is these photos now. You've got nothing else. Because you do, again, they're the moments. They're the things that you think about, or you certainly would think about.
Yeah. Well, even Judd says that later on, doesn't he? About the memories and stuff when he's talking about grief. Like you have the memories.
Yeah, but I mean that's another little sort of nuance to his character and a little scene for him, because he's talking to Ellie, but he's talking to Lewis as well. He's there. He's talking. It's a nice little performance.
Yeah, it is
quite sweet, even though it's his fault.
Yeah,
on the whole. But there we go. And then you get sort of some of the weirdest bits of the film. Really, you've got this funeral where it gets called a stinking shit by Rachel's dad, who we've already sort of learnt was a bit of a bastard because he used to leave his daughter with
a heavily disabled woman in the house.
Or guy.
Yeah.
who's again supposed to be a teenage girl. I mean, you know, just to sort of pick up on that really, because it's one of the creepiest parts. I don't think it really fits great, but it works well on a horror level. It's obviously very disturbing, and creepy. It's not very PC really.
No.
This poor girl's got spinal meningitis, and I would imagine it's obviously a bigger part of the novel, but it does feel very sort of shoehorned in. But then again, like I say, it does provide again a couple of the freakier, sort of scarier moments when it gets to later, once Gage has come back and she goes into that house and she's just there. She's sort of there, but you don't quite see her. Very nice little shot, really. But yeah, then you got this funeral. The funeral is just, oh my God.
Yeah,
it's very
uncomfortable,
very disturbing. And then Rachel and Ellie go back to her mum and dad's and leave Lewis at home, but they can't get hold of him. Ellie's having dreams thanks to Mr. Pascal.
Yeah.
Pat's cow. What do you call him? Pascal.
Oh yeah, I can't remember.
Paxal or something. Although Rachel's mum clearly does not have a clue about what men do when they can't get to him on the telephone.
He's not home.
Probably went out for a hamburger or a chicken dinner, dear. You know how men are when they're alone.
She hasn't been around a lot of men.
No, certainly not. Not men who are home alone. They're either going to bury their recently deceased son in a pet cemetery, or they're probably having a big wank.
Yeah, he would have wanked himself into a coma.
But then, you know, you get this sort of, and then Pascal, is sort of leading Ellie back home to try and rescue the situation, rescue her husband, and he's really pleased with himself as well, even though he basically orphans Ellie, and he's not really sure that things are going to be okay, but he just sort of leads Rachel back regardless.
How did you feel about him in those later scenes? Like, he was quite comical in a way. Do you feel like that's messed with the tone a bit too much, or do you feel like you needed a bit of that comedy relief because the film is so dour and so depressing?
I don't know. I didn't really sort of see it as that. It was just, it almost came across as a reason to get her back to the house, and not really justify the really unhappy ending. Not that it's not it wouldn't be as still an unhappy ending if, you know, she didn't go back, she stayed there and survived. But it just, that's what it came across as. It was just, he's getting her back there.
Well, I think the film is talking about grief and dealing with death, and the thing about Rachel is the fact that she's sort of always running away from talking about death and dealing with it. Like the whole Zelda thing, and she's not happy when, I forget his name, but Wooden Dad is talking to the daughter about what happens when you die. She's not happy about it. But I'm guessing like it's sort of the fact that she's going all this way. They're putting obstacles in her way, but she's still overcoming them to get home. Like, she's actually going to deal with death, and well, she does.
Indeed. Well, that's it. You know, you get to this last act, and we've got Evil Gage.
Yeah,
who is definitely you can take your Damien's and any other creepy kid in a film. I think he just about notches it as the creepiest kid in a horror film.
I would agree.
Because, you know, he's very vocal. He's laughing all the time.
Roland, I told you I can't talk to you right now.
Alright, just Daddy. Will you come over and play with me? First I played with Dad, then Mommy came, and I played with Mommy. We played, Daddy. We had an awful good time. Now I want to play with you.
What did you do? What did you do?
And any kid that is going to go for your Achilles tendon.
Yeah, Jesus.
Is, you know, it's one of those injuries, whether it's this film or something like Audition, anything that goes for God, it's not nice. And you can it makes it believable. I think, you know, it's this little kid who's taking on. You know, Fred Wynn's a big fella. You know, he's not a. Even though he's quite old, he's still got something about him.
Yeah.
But you know, that's gonna bring you down to your knees.
I love that line when he's trying to find him in his bedroom, and he's like, "I've got something for you, Gage," and he's like opening that flip knife. Yeah.
But you know, you've got those sort of, you know, obviously I don't think you can make up a kid to look. You know, he's looking pretty good considering he got floored by a big, however many ton truck.
Yeah.
But obviously you can't really make up a kid that much, I suppose. No. But you know, you can give him slick down hair, which is just the mark of evil, really, isn't it? The freakiest bit of this film is he's just randomly there with a top hat and cane. When I think Lewis sort of it's when Rachel sort of finds him, he's just got a top hat and cane on. Again, whether that's something in the book, I don't know. But
well, actually, I was going to ask you about that. Did you notice the little bit of creepy foreshadowing? Because when Rachel is at her parents' house and she's trying to call home, she's in the living room, and above the fireplace is a giant like oil painting, and the oil painting is of a little kid wearing exactly the same thing as what Cage is wearing, a top hat and a cane, and he has a little grey cat by his leg.
Wow, I know, I didn't see that. I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, and you see it a couple of times, and then I noticed it when he comes towards her. He's wearing this top hat and cane, and it's sort of like, here he is.
But yeah, oh god, yeah, it's freaky. But then you get, and this, because the last time I watched this, like I said, we got to the scene where Gage gets run over, and to be honest, I couldn't watch anymore. I was a bit like, I don't really want to watch this. So I never sort of got this far on my last rewatch of it. But the scene where he has to sort of kill Gage is, I can honestly say, my heart just jumped into my mouth. It's a weird sense. It's a weird feeling, and a weird reaction for a film, I think. Because you get various things, whether it makes you jump, whether it makes you sad, whether it makes you angry or whatever. But this is it's just so upsetting, because he blames himself for the accident, brings his son back to life, who obviously goes on this horrible sort of killing spree, and he knows what he's got to do, and it's his punishment basically, is he has to kill his own son, you know, and he knows. It's that sort of, again, it's just so, for the amount of unrealistic acting there is in this film, this is the most, you know, if you had something in a syringe or whatever, and you know, pop that into a kid's neck like he does, that is exactly the reaction the kid would have, is ow,
yeah.
ow, 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 and just sort of toddle off. They probably wouldn't say no fair, you know, yeah. But it's just heartbreaking. It really is. Yeah,
it is really uncomfortable, and he just sort of like wanders around the corner and slumps down, and we just watch him die again. Like it is quite disturbing.
And that's it. Like I say, you know, that's his sort of punishment. His final punishment is that he has to do that. And then, you know, as good as Victor Pascal's decisions are to try and save this family, Lewis makes that final decision that completely ruins it. Sticking his wife in the pet cemetery, and then she comes back in the single creepiest bit of special effects.
Yeah.
With a oozy face.
Yeah, straight out the eye socket.
And that's it. Curtains, and we get the Ramones playing us out, which is just that tone is just is so bizarre.
Do you reckon it's maybe because you've just been on a ride for an hour and 40 minutes of just pure depression, and you've watched this guy lose all of his family somewhat through choices of his own, and everyone is going to die now, and then boom,
we need the Ramones.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't know. It just doesn't fit. You know, you get films that can get away with that. I'm trying to think off the top of my head now, but you'll get, where that tone's right to sort of, even with the depressing ending, you'll get that big sort of musical boom to take you into the credits and that, but it just doesn't work for me. I mean, there's some nice little bits of score in this film as well. That very sort of, some horror movies do it where it's sort of, you get the creepy score and then it just goes away, and it's not bad. I mean, to sort of finish off with Stephen King's little sort of cameo. They got very sort of condensed Stephen King here. I think he was off the drugs by this point, I think.
And now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and comfort you and lift you up and give you peace. Amen.
Yeah, I think 89 was right
so
about the time of
You're not getting full Gurney Stephen King at this point. But it's it's a nice little inclusion, really.
Well, while you're talking about the music, actually, I do want to just say that the guy who did the music for this is Elliot Goldenthal. I think that's how you pronounce the name. He did the music for Alien 3.
Oh,
which is one of my favourite scores. And I also like the score for this. It's kind of haunting and creepy and childlike in some points as well, in some bits. So yeah, I did enjoy the score.
But I think the main reason I sort of picked this was the horror parts of this film are very good. They're very effective. The special effects are decent enough. Very sort of freaky. You've got a very good sort of antagonist. Sorry, engage. A very sort of memorable. It's a very memorable film, but I wouldn't say that it's fantastic. It would be
I think
a 3 out of 5. I think.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I think I probably enjoyed it a lot more when I was a kid, and when I watched it when I was younger, it scared the shit out of me. And watching it now, I still find it creepy, but it doesn't have that punch as it used to.
But I definitely would say that it's, for me, it's the best film with a Stephen King appearance in it.
Yeah.
It's definitely the strongest one.
Because you got first pick, that means I couldn't have chosen this film, but if it was me, I would have gone for this as well. It would have probably been my first pick. And also, just a word on, is it Mary Lambert, the director of this? Yeah, like you, I don't really know a lot about her. All I really know about her is the fact that she did this, and she also did the sequel Pet Sematary 2, which is supposed to be really, really bad. But
I have seen it. I mean, it's it's got everybody's favourite moody teenager, Edward Furlong, in it.
Yes.
And Clancy Brown being his usual dickhead, basically. I think he plays his heart. I can't remember too much about it. I can't remember if
he's not the Kurgan in this as well, is it?
No. I can't remember the ins and outs of it. I think they end up. I've got a feeling they end up killing him because he's the sort of nasty stepdad, and they bring him back. I think to try and cover up the fact that they've killed him. I think anyway, but it's not great at all. And as you mentioned earlier, you've got the remake 2019, I think it was, which I've not looked at. I know it flip flops a lot of the.
I went to see it at the cinema and I didn't enjoy it. This one is definitely the stronger movie, in my opinion. I wasn't keen on it.
Okay, I think I'll have to have a look because I think it is still streaming at the minute. So.
Yeah, it's worth a go. It's under 2 hours, I think. So it's not too bad. I just feel like if you've seen this one, you don't really need to see the remake. Like, they do a couple of little things that are different. Obviously, they change who gets hit by the truck, and then a little bit near the end, sort of thing. I think. Well, I don't want to. I maybe won't spoil it, but they do a couple of little things different. But I feel like this is the stronger movie, in my personal opinion. And also, just back on to Mary Lambert, I think was her name. I don't think this movie is as well directed as my pick, but there are a couple of little moments that I saw when I was watching this that I thought, oh, that was nice. And I just wanted to point them out, and that was when Judd's talking to, I forget the guy's name, the dad, because he's quite...
Lewis.
When he's talking to Lewis, and he's telling him about his dog, when he buried him, and when it goes back into the flashback, the camera just sort of pans across the table from them talking out the window, and then it's like 1940s or whatever, and I really liked that little camera movement, and also when we see Judd get his tendons sliced and that whole scene, and then when Rachel goes into Judd's house, we follow her, but we follow her from her ankles, and we see her like walk in, and we're always kept on her ankles because we're like, Jesus Christ, when's Cage going to come out and do that again? And that was a nice little just a nice little shot. I like that. So there's some good bits in here. She's certainly not a terrible director. I just think it's very by the numbers. It's very, she knows what she's doing, I think.
Yeah. Well, it did only... I mean, I think you can sort of tell, because one thing I meant to mention towards the start was there is a little documentary on YouTube on Uncovered and Untold or something like that.
Okay.
It's a very sort of fan-made documentary, but it's got some interesting bits in it.
Okay.
The guy who plays Lewis looks terrible.
Oh, Jesus.
These days. It looks a bit like, Billy's ghost in Scream 5.
All right, okay.
Sort of swelled a little bit. But they mentioned at the start of that, the producer, whose name eludes me at the moment, she was trying to get it made from about 1984, and they just kept saying, no, we've got the script, the script's done, Stephen King had written the script, it's all ready to go, no. Then 88 comes along, the Writers Guild of America strikes, so they've got to make anything that's got a script, which they had to do.
Okay.
So, they had this ready, and that's why it got made, which you can probably sort of tell that, to be fair, with the script.
Yeah,
it's not the best.
Yeah, it might need a little bit of work, I guess. I mean, I'm no expert, but I feel like there's some things they could have polished off and spent a bit more time doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you'd got better people delivering the lines, maybe not.
Oh God, yeah, that would make a hell of a difference.
So there we go. I think I'm not gonna beat this film to death, or slice its ankles or anything like that. So I'll hand over to you to let us know what you went with. Hello and welcome to the intermission. This is the part of the episode where we just take a little break from discussing our choices for this week, and just want to pose a little question in the break to our co-host. So, with this episode being Liam's choice of subject, it's up to me to think of something to get his brain around and make a sort of choice on. So, Liam.
Yes. So,
I've got a question for you.
Okay, go for it.
It's a bit of a would you rather question.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this online, but I thought I'd throw it to you because I thought it was quite an interesting one. So it's a choice.
Choose wisely.
So the question I pose to you, Liam, is: would you rather delete the entire Terminator franchise from history, or the entire Predator franchise from history?
Oof. Okay. Right. Okay. So I have to choose one to delete. That's difficult. Because I think they both have cracking first movies, but then you could say that Terminator, everybody always goes to Terminator 2 Judgment Day as being, a great sequel, which it is, and it's a fantastic movie. I'm quite partial to Terminator 1, though, but I do like T2. It's difficult. But then when you've got the Predator franchise, I suppose you would say that Predator is the best movie, and I know we discussed Predator 2 and we do love it, but I would say that Terminator 2 is definitely a better movie than Predator 2. So It's difficult. What has the worst sequels? Ugh.
See, that's a tough one. I know what I'd pick.
Yeah. I think you'd pick Terminator, and I'm just because of like the shitty sequels we've had for that. And I think Terminator's a difficult movie because it's I don't know, you don't have a lot to play with. It's playing with time travel, which is
troublesome.
Yeah. It's hard to do in films because you do the littlest thing wrong and everybody wants to nitpick it unless you just treat it like Back to the Future and it's like, fuck it, we're here to have fun. This isn't a science movie. But I don't know.
I have to press you for an answer.
Yeah, okay, alright, okay.
Everybody's coming back from the toilet.
Shit, okay, alright. I'm going to go with my gut and I'm going to delete the... Oh, this is really hard. I'm not actually deleting it, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm going to delete the Terminator franchise just because they'll never make another good movie. I don't care what anybody says. It'll never happen. Because Terminator is robots and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and eventually Arnold is going to die, and they're just going to keep doing the same shitty movie over and over again, and it's not going to be interesting. But I feel like Predator, they still have a chance to do a good movie or two, and I would be more interested in watching a new Predator film than a new Terminator movie. Yeah, that was difficult. That's what I would do.
Well, I would agree with you. I think mainly just because fuck James Cameron. Because, but not just that.
Can we delete the Avatar franchise?
Oh, God, I wish. But yeah, I think there's a lot more rewatch value in the Predator series. I think you got arguably 3 good films in there, and you've got 2. I know Terminator 1 and 2 are really good films, but I always think, well, what would I rather watch, Terminator 1, 2, or Predator? And it'd probably be Predator, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree. And I know people might find that hard to believe that we're going to delete Terminator and Terminator 2 from history, but if we keep them, we've got to keep Genesis and what was his last one? Dark Fate.
I quite enjoyed Genesis, to be fair. But fucking number 3, the one with Christian Bale shouting at people, and
Salvation.
And Dark Fate were just awful. I think I don't think I've still watched the whole of Salvation or the whole of Dark Fate. So
yeah, it's a shame they fucked up Salvation, really, because it's that's what we were all really wanted to see. I think that whole, and they just wasted it. I don't know why they don't go back and try and do that. They just keep having to go back to the time travel shit. Yeah. Let's get
shake our fists. Shake harder, boy.
Let's get rid of the Terminator franchise. I'm quite happy with that.
Well, everybody's back now from the toilet. Everybody's back from the toilet, and they've had their ice creams and got a fresh bucket of popcorn to rustle. So let's head back to the main podcast.
Yes. Thank you, and see you at the next intermission. Okay, well, I guess everybody might know from the title of this episode, but the movie that I went for was Creepshow. Actually, I went a bit high-pitched there, so I'm going to do that again.
Creepshow?
The movie I went for was the 1982 George Romero directed Creepshow.
Coming soon. Jolting tales of horror. Creepshow. From the author of Carrie, The Shining, and Cujo. And the creator of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead.
Okay, so Creepshow was directed by George Romero, the zombie godfather. Stephen King wrote the screenplay, and it stars Adrienne Barbeau, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Fritz Weaver, Leslie Nielsen, the great Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson as well, and there's also a little cameo in this from Stephen King's son, Joe Hill. He's the son right at the start with the comic book, with Tom Atkins as well.
It really disturbed me, I've got to say it, that Tom Atkins didn't have a mustache.
Yes. Well, the fact that he didn't have a mustache and he was being a bit of an arsehole, because I'm used to Tom Atkins just being like a bit of a wisecracking badass hero, and the fact that he's saying every other word is crap.
Yeah. And he's got sex books under his bed.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. But fucking hell, yeah, I love Tom Atkins. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about like Night of the Creeps and Halloween 3, but I'm sure we will. But anyway, I digress. So, the synopsis for the film is an anthology which tells 5 terrifying tales inspired by the EC horror comic books of the 1950s. So, as I said before, Stephen King wrote the screenplay for this. I think him and George Romero were actually planning on adapting The Stand into a movie before they did this, but obviously that would have cost a lot of money, and eventually that didn't turn out, so they still decided they wanted to work together on something, so that's where Creepshow was born. And also Creepshow was one of the first horror anthology movies I actually watched as a kid, and that's one of the reasons why it sort of popped into my head when I was thinking of this. So, as I said, there's 5 segments in this horror anthology, and they are Father's Day, The Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill, Something to Tide You Over, The Crate, and They're Creeping Up on You. 2 of these are actually based on Stephen King short stories. The Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill, I think, was called The Weeds, and The Crate was also a short story that he had published in a magazine, I think. So that's that.
Do you want to go through the segments piece by piece?
I think so. I think that's probably the best thing to do. Okay, so the first segment is Father's Day. It's got the one and only Ed Harris doing some really creepy dancing
with hair as well, and not being his usual moody self.
Yeah, it's actually a bit weird to see him with some hair. He's quite young in this, but he also looks old as well, if that's possible. Like, yeah. But yeah, basically, so this first one is some auntie's after her dad, and then stolen the money. She killed him on Father's Day, and he comes back wanting his cake.
I don't know. I couldn't quite figure out if this had some sort of sexual undertones to it. It was just very strange.
Yeah, it is. Well, I guess there's some sort of flirting between. I forget her name. I've got to be honest, I think some of the characters in this first one are a little bit bland and boring. Like, everyone's just sort of posh, pretentious, old money type people. I can't remember any of their names, so they're all a little bit forgettable. I think the only reason why I like this one is because of the dad zombie that crawls his way out, and he's just constantly saying that he wants his cake. And to quote Borat, at the end, he get it.
It's Father's Day, and I got my cake. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd way. It is just sort of there, isn't it? There's not much to it. It's very...
Yeah. It's a good little starter, I guess, because I definitely want to get to my favourite. I think there's 2 of these that are my favourite, and the rest are all sort of... They're okay, I think. But the 2 that I love the most, I think, are definitely the best. So I'd be interested to see if you agree with that. Yeah, I'm not really going to spend too much time talking about Father's Day, because I just feel like it's okay.
It's there to get you going, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the special effects in this are pretty decent for the time, 1982, and it's Tom Savini that's doing all the special effects. Yeah. So that's nice.
There is a lovely neck twist in Father's Day.
Yes, I will. Yes, yeah, that is pretty good. And what sort of runs through this whole Creepshow movie is that, like, the cinematography is really cool. I love like the comic book style that they've gone for. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes the frame will have actual like comic book frames, or it'll have like some cool design. And also when something bad happens, that's when like some color will be introduced. So you get like these nice pops of red and blue or purple, and then you get that zany background, and it just has that like comic book feel to it, which is really cool. It's really fun, and it's kind of I guess quite different for a George Romero movie. It's well directed. I think compared to the first pick, there's some definite shot choices in here, and along with the cinematography, it's a lot more pleasing to the eye, and I think it's pretty well directed.
It's more. I think it comes across more. I want to say Hollywood, but hammy Hollywood. If you know what I mean, it's not taking it. The directions, the film doesn't take itself too seriously, and I don't think it. And Romero doesn't take himself too seriously. To be fair,
No.
I don't think he does in anything that he's done post Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, so I'll agree with that. It's the film is fun, and I think everybody making it knows that it's supposed to be fun. So it just embraces that silliness, that comic book-esque type thing. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Father's Day because I really want to get to my personal favourite, and if we're talking about Stephen King cameos, I think this is definitely the best one.
Really?
So, yeah, it's The Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill, which stars Stephen King.
Holy old Jesus!
And obviously this is like 1982, so this is the height of Stephen King being absolutely coked out of his face.
I put coked up to his eyeballs.
Yes.
Because even if you don't know that he was coked up to his eyeballs,
yeah,
you can tell in this film.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I guess we shouldn't make fun about it really, but like Stephen King had a really bad drug problem and a really bad drink problem. For most of the 80s, really. He was doing a shitload of blow and just drinking a lot of beer, a lot of vodka, a lot of spirits. So yeah, but he also wrote some of the best books of his career in that sort of time period. So he was firing them out. But anyway, for this segment, Geordie Verrill, played by Stephen King, he's a hick farmer and he's sort of got money troubles. He's got really bad luck, and suddenly this meteorite just drops from the sky.
I'd be dipped in shit if that ain't a meteor.
And he thinks that this might be his ticket to some money. But little does he know that once he's chucked water on it, touched himself, that he's spreading this alien fauna, this alien weed that slowly starts to take over his property, his house, and himself. I think the main reason why I like this is probably because of Stephen King, because he gives such a over-the-top performance that he's great. Like, he's actually really good. I personally think he's really good in this. He's so silly, and I also like the little cutaways that it has to when he thinks what he's going to do with this meteorite, whether he's going to take it to the university and sell it for big money.
I wonder how much they'd pay for it up to college. Wonder how much they'd pay for it up to college.
Or he's broken it and now he's not going to get any money. Those scenes are really done well, I think, and they're really fun. It's a good little segment, I think, and I think out of the 5, it's my favourite. And it's also quite depressing as well, really, once you see what happens to Geordie right at the end. It's true, he has nothing but bad luck. So yeah, it's
Well,
it's
I'm going to drop something in here because I would go the other end of the scale because I thought this was the worst.
Oh, really?
In the film.
Okay.
Yeah, although I will say that King is better at acting when he's on the drugs.
Okay. Well, maybe Matey Boy from Pet Semetary could have done some coke, and that would have given a better performance. Because Jesus, he needed.
But no,
it.
I don't know. It just didn't click with me at all. It was mercifully. I thought it was nice and short.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't get it at all.
Okay.
Sorry to say.
No, that's fine. Well, we're all allowed to have different opinions, so that's totally fine, mate. Out of interest, then, what would you say would be your favourite?
Well, I think it'd be cool to sort of do at the end of this. Maybe do our I'll run in order of what was the best.
All right,
what
okay.
was the worst.
All right,
so
yeah.
I'll save that because I think it'd be
okay, cool.
quite interesting to do. But this would be at the bottom.
Wow. Okay. All right.
I
fair
think
enough.
I might change my mind by the end. You might convince me on something, but not on
okay.
that.
Well, I like the fact that it is quite short. I don't know whether it's the shortest one. I think it might be. But Stephen King's performance, I think, is great. It's just meteor shit.
Oh, you done it now, Jordy Verrill? You monkhead.
He's just a fucking dunce. He's just so good. But anyway, yeah. So that one is my favourite.
Meteor shit.
And then we've got Something to Tide You Over, which is another good one, I think. It stars Leslie Nielsen, who's actually kind of playing a serious role, and he's really good in it, I think.
I thought it was really hard. It's quite hard to sort of watch because you're just waiting for him to do something very silly. Obviously, it gets a bit more silly towards the end of the segment, but it's just very off-putting, I thought.
Yeah, I do get that. I did find it the first time I watched it, or maybe on a rewatch a while back, that like you are kind of used to him playing like Frank Drebin or whatever, like this stone-faced but comedic genius.
He does pull off Sinister, though, to be fair, you know.
Yeah, I think so. Like he does give a good performance, and also Ted Danson's not that bad in it either. I think he's pretty good, and it's a cool little idea. What he does.
You do sort of get though that the impression, because he's got that sort of unbuttoned sort of shirt, that he's Robin Williams levels of hairy under that.
I don't want to think about that.
I'll give you anything. Just get me out of this hole, all right?
Well, I have something here, Harry. Take your mind off of it.
But yeah, that's another good one. I think it's quite fun. Again, with the cinematography right near the end, there's some really nice bit of shadow work when Ted Danson and his girlfriend or whatever have come back from the dead after being buried up to the neck in the sand, and then the tide has washed in and drowned them. So they've come back for revenge.
Did you not think though that that story is a very similar story to the first story, to Father's Day, of somebody who's been killed and coming back from the dead?
I guess so, yeah, for revenge. But I guess the difference is that the person who's killed in the first one, Father's Day, is kind of a bit of a horrible shit. Like you can see he's a pain. He's just demanding his cake, and I think he killed his daughter's lover. So I guess she's well, I don't want to say well within her rights, but I can understand why she wanted to kill her dad.
Well, these two have been having an affair.
I guess so, but I think you can sort of tell like that they're actually in love. And did Leslie Nielsen actually love her, or was he just sort of using her? And the way that he kills them is quite horrible and slow, and it's not like an ashtray over the head.
It's a lot of hard work in 1982 to get all that set up going as well.
Yeah.
So you got to admire his persistence and his dedication to getting it done.
Just take a look at the VCR back there. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't turn your head. Let me assure you, Harry, the VCR is not on play, it's on record. I'm going to save this stuff. Two of you are part of my home movies.
You're insane.
Oh, don't be long now, huh? Not long at all.
Yeah, I do love like how easy it would be to do it now, but in 1982, like he has to go and take his Jeep back to the house to bring back these like fucking reels of cables so he can plug in like the VCR and the TV and leave it on the beach. It's like, oh my god,
it's a big fuck off VCR as well. It's not like it's
and one of those big glass fronted TVs. Like we've spent 10 minutes of this segment just watching him plug in electronics. But yeah, that's a bit of a fun one, and it's another good little Tom Savini special effects, like him and his girlfriend after they're deceased, like their skin's all like water drenched and ripply, and then when he shoots them, like this horrible dirty coloured blood comes out, and they're all covered in seaweed. Like it's fun. It's a nice little design. So yeah, that's Something to Tide You Over. The next one is maybe my second favourite, which is also based on a Stephen King short story, and that's The Crate. This one's quite cool. I think maybe it's a little bit too long. It could have maybe been edited down a tad. I do feel like it drags a little bit. But basically, the story is that a janitor finds a crate underneath some stairs. It's from like the 1800s, from an Antarctic expedition. They come and open it, and inside this crate is this horrible hairy monster that can't stop eating people. But then you have other things going on. The protagonist, which I can't remember his name, but I think he's played by Hull Halbrook or something like that. Anyway, he has a terrible, terrible wife who's played by Adrienne Barbeau, who I love. And she's actually quite fun in this for the like 10 minutes she's in it. She's just a terrible, whiny drunk, and she's a bitch. and he just has these scenarios where he daydreams about killing her, but he's not man enough to do it.
Department is looking to put the knife in. I mean, some of these
Wilma?
so-called academics make the shark in Jaws look like fucking Flipper.
Wilma!
Husband's calling you, Billy. Oh, God, Henry, what's wrong now?
Not a thing, Wilma. Everything's just fine.
Do you know what? I'd sort of got to this point in the film, and I thought the women are written to be very horrible in this film across all the segments, because you've got in Father's Day you've got 3 women who, one who killed the dad, one who doesn't give a shit and is a bit just blasé about it, and then you've got this other woman who's a bit of a shit as well. Then you've got Liam Neeson's wife, Leslie Nielsen's wife, who's obviously having an affair, and then you've got Adrienne Barbeau, who's just again a bit of a shit, and not a very good, not a very nice wife. It doesn't sort of put women in a very good light, this film.
I can see that. I mean, it is 1982, so they weren't really representing women that great. But I would say that in the first one, Father's Day, that you do have, granted, they're maybe not the best characters, but they do stand up to, or she does stand up to her father, who's a bit of an abuser in some ways, and she's like, no, I'm not having it anymore. I'm going to smash you over the head with an ashtray. So, like, he kind of did deserve it. And we don't really get to see a lot of Ted Danson's girlfriend that he's been having an affair with, but we do have to watch her sort of like horribly, slowly drowned, which is not nice.
No.
So yeah.
But then to be fair to Adrienne Barbeau, it does look like a very boring party that she's at.
Yeah, I mean they're all stiffy sort of college professors, scientists, and all that sort of stuff. I mean you can tell it in the production design as well, which is really good because everyone's just wearing like grey and beige and dull colours, but she's like wearing this red top, and she's like being really like boisterous and loud and annoying. But I think she's quite fun in this. It's kind of nice because every time you see, every time I've seen Adrienne Barbeau in film, she's always been like, usually quite a strong female character. And I guess maybe it was fun for her to play someone who's just like a bit of a drunk arsehole. So I did like her in this. But yeah, I probably will say that the women are maybe not very well represented in this. But it's 1982. It is of the time, I guess. But what happens to her is her husband has the idea of feeding her to Fluffy, the monster that's inside the crate, as a way to get rid of her. And it works. He gets rid of her.
When was the last time you got it up, Henry? Huh? When was the last time you were a man in our bed? Now get out of my way, Henry, or I swear to God you'll be wearing your balls for earrings. And I swear to God, if you ever touch
So there you go. But another instance of I think this being well directed is there's a couple of nice shots in this, and one of my favourites is when the professor and the janitor, they're sort of examining the crate that's hidden under the stairs, and the janitor drops the flashlight and it hits the floor and it rolls, and then it cuts to the box and you see the light go across the writing that's inked onto the box, and then it cuts back to the flashlight as it rolls back, and it's just like a really nice way of showing you a bit of text on there. It's showing you, it's not telling you. It's I think that's just an instance of a director doing a really good job. And the same thing is there's a good bit of tension building when they finally get the crate out and it's on the desk, and they're slowly pulling the nails out, and we're seeing them come out and you're like, oh god, they're going to be opening this box pretty soon, and it's just just a little scene like that. It's just something that's well shot, I think. So that's The Crate, and then the last one is They're Creeping Up on You, which is all about cockroaches, which is kind of fun. So,
and although they're essentially brainless, you have to watch them because they creep up on you.
It is very sort of, this is pure horror, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's such a simple idea of being freaked out by bugs, really, but you've got this protagonist who is not very likable at all, and gets what he deserves. Nice little sort of finish to the movie, I thought.
Bastards! Roaches. Damn bad.
Yeah, and I think when I was doing my little bit of research, this was the most expensive segment to film. I think they spent like a crazy amount of money just buying these cockroaches to fill up this apartment.
Is it something like ridiculous, like $3.50 or something per cockroach? And they had 4,000.
Yeah, it's something crazy like that, like the price of per cockroach, and then how many they had. It was really, really expensive, but it is. It's not my favourite, but it is a good one. So you do have this protagonist who's like this sort of Howard Hughes sort of, bit of a crazy, eccentric billionaire that lives in this super clean flat. He's really obsessed with everything being clean and straight and tidy and stuff, but he's being constantly pestered by cockroaches, and he's just a horrible person. And yeah, he gets what he deserves in the end. He gets tormented by these bugs, and he's treated everyone in his life, I think, like bugs, and tried to squish them out of existence. And this time he gets completely devoured by cockroaches, and they burst their way out of his flesh, which is a great little it's quite disturbing, but it's a good way to.
I'd say that's probably the best effect in the film, is that popping out of there.
Yeah,
oh, God, it's just creepy. I've always had a bit of a thing for bugs.
No, I agree. They're pretty gross. There's something about cockroaches as well. It's just no, not nice. But it's a cool little scene, the way they just sort of like burst out of his skin and just start crawling all over his dead body, and then it sort of cuts back. I don't know whether to reality, but like there are no bugs. They've all gone, and he's dead. No, that's not right. It does, because you think that they're not. Yeah,
they've all gone. Yeah,
they all start coming out as flesh. That was it. So yeah, that's that, and then we go back to the beginning with Stephen King's real life son, Joe Hill. He's bought a mail order voodoo doll from the Creepshow comic book that we see at the start of the film, and he's killing his dad.
Oh, it's this goddamn stiff neck. I can barely move my head.
You must have strained it.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you poor old bear. You want me to get some Bengay?
No.
Teach them to throw away my comic books.
Yeah, nice way to end.
As you do.
And we also get a little cameo by Tom Savini. He's plays one of the garbage men at the end. Yeah, and that's Creepshow. I would also like to say that I like the music as well. I think the guy who did the music is John Harrison, who's worked with Romero a few times, and he did the music for Day of the Dead, which is my favourite Dead movie. And the score for that's really good, and the music for this is really good too. Like each segment kind of has its own little theme. Like the Geordie Verrill segment is very sort of 1950s, and you can tell that in the score. Like there's these really good little 1950s sci-fi bits.
There's very sort of electronic. I think it's in the Leslie Nielsen segment in it, with a sort of the electronic sort of score.
Yeah,
that's very sort of Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. But yeah, it's each one matches up to its segment, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Like they've they've made them their own little individual story, and they're really good.
Well, I mean, this was is the first time I've watched this. They've always sort of been on the radar, but I've not watched any of the Creepshow. So this was my first sort of viewing, and I definitely thought. Sorry, go on.
Sorry. Have you seen Creepshow 2? I'm guessing you haven't. Okay.
No. Well, I thought, for some bizarre reason, I thought you'd said Creepshow 2.
Well, my original pick was Creepshow 2, and I was going back and forth whether to do the first one or the second one, and I was really unsure. But I think just because the Stephen King cameo in this, for me, was one of the things that made me pick it. And that the choice that I'd made wasn't best Stephen King cameo, it was just best movie.
With the Stephen King cameo, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought, it was good. I enjoyed some segments a lot more than others. But it's very sort of good old-fashioned horror. It's, each segment for the most part has that little twist to it, little different sort of homage, I suppose, to different types of horror. I thought the effects were pretty good. I mean, for 1982, is it? 82?
Yeah, 82, yeah.
Is pretty good, but then I wouldn't say it was the effects of Savini's best. It's a bit of an odd one. Yeah. Then I suppose some of it's like the Fluffy in the crate is a little bit off and a little bit cartoonish, but then I guess that's maybe
fits with the tone of the film, really.
It almost looked like they were trying to do sort of King Kong. He's very King Kongish. The original sort of features, I suppose. Maybe not the original, but the sort of 70s version, I think it is.
Yeah, well, you can tell it's a guy in a suit, and it's like the face doesn't have a lot of articulation, really. I think it just might have some cheeks that breathe and stuff like that.
I think I read somewhere it wasn't that for his Savini's first animatronic. He'd not done animatronics before. I'm sure I read that somewhere.
It could have been. I mean, I know he worked a lot with George Romero, and I know he did obviously Friday the 13th. So
how would you rank Creepshow?
What, each of the segments? Okay. Well,
worst to best.
Worst to best. Well, I think I would go Father's Day. They're Creeping Up on You. Something to Tide You Over. The Crate, and Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. What would you go?
I'd go the Stephen King segment last.
Okay.
I would go
Meteor shit.
That echoes my sentiment, really. Okay. I would probably go. It's a tough one. It's between Father's Day and Something to Tide You Over.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd probably go Something to Tide You Over.
Okay.
As fourth, because it was cool to sort of see a sinister Leslie Nielsen. But
I feel like it goes on too long. I feel like it could be a lot shorter.
It's far too long. Father's Day, I liked it. It was nice, simple. Just got on with it. And then I'd say They're Creeping Up on You. Again, a lot like Father's Day. It's simple. You get everything you need in however long it is, 15, 20 minutes. And the effects are really cool, really gross. And then The Crate, number one, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. And I guess it's kind of nice that our films are quite different. The fact that mine's an anthology and yours is a pretty much your straightforward film. So I guess that's something I had to think about, was because I would have picked Pet Semetary just because it is the best film. And this is kind of like 5 mini films in one, it being an anthology. So there are some that are better than others. So yeah, it was tough. Like I say, I was toying between Creepshow 2 and Creepshow 1. I felt like I had to go for Creepshow 1, really.
Well, I mean, it is, you know, if you're going by, you know, it's a big, but you know, it's not just a cameo, is it? It's a big sort of performance by King.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite sort of stand out really, because it's him for a whole segment.
Yeah, and I didn't have a problem with it too much. I quite enjoyed it. But then again, I don't know if that's just because I like Stephen King and I found his performance was so over the top that it was kind of interesting to watch. It was quite cartoonish.
Yeah.
And again, obviously, person who likes Gremlins too. I like my cartoonish stuff. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. And I would definitely recommend Creepshow 2 at some point, because there's only 3 segments in that one, but I think all of them are pretty good. Like the raft and
it's
some good ones in that.
It's actually on YouTube at the moment as well.
Yes, some criminal has put it on YouTube for free, so if you would like to watch it, it is on there, which we don't condone, but we can't stop these people.
With YouTube, it's, you know, it's a conglomerate or whatever it is, so you can watch it and feel happy about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah.
If you had gone for Creepshow 2, you'd have saved me £3.50 anyway.
Oh, well, apologies.
You bastard.
Sorry. Well, you know, Stephen King might get some money out of that.
But I think, you know, if especially thinking about sort of future picks and things like that, I think this was a really good choice of subject for a second one, because it was something that made you think, and it's not necessarily just plumbing for something that you're very, you know, very passionate about. And I probably made more notes on Pet Semetary for one, you know, than I did for Predator 2 last week. You know, I think it's the kind of subject that's gonna force you to look at sort of different decisions. I mean, I know we're probably sort of ready to talk about maybe what other things we considered, which we are sort of doing. You know, you considered.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, there wasn't a lot. Looking at the sort of list of films he's either cameos in or roles in, there wasn't a lot that I'd seen. The only 2 that really jumped out was Pet Semetary and It Chapter 2.
Yeah.
Which
yeah, well,
is okay for some of it, but it's not
okay
Pet Sematary
for most of it. Yeah.
But then I think is quite a nice little performance in It Chapter 2 by Stephen King. I think, you know,
yeah,
it's a different performance to what you saw in Creepshow, and it's a different performance to what you saw in something like Pet Sematary. I mean, I know he's in something I thought about first, but then realised it was a miniseries and not film, was The Stand, because he's got quite a big role in that, or a prominent role in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we're talking about all the other movies, we've got to remember that it also had to be based on one of his books, or, you know, something that he was involved in. So that also narrowed it down, because, I mean, he has been in a lot of TV. I know he's done... he was in an episode of Sons of Anarchy or something like that, and some other bits and bobs. But, I mean, the other choices we had were Maximum Overdrive, Creepshow 2, Sleepwalkers, which I'd love to talk about, because that movie is so bad it's good. Thinner, another good bad movie.
You see, I forgot about Thinner. Thinner was another one I considered, actually, because it is.
Yeah.
It's quite. It's a nice taut little film. Yeah,
it's actually not that bad. It's pretty good. And God, who was the guy who directed it? It was the guy who did Child's Play. Tom something. Fuck. But anyway, he's a good director. He also did Fright Night, which is a great movie. Yeah, so that was kind of it, really. I mean, there was Storm of the Century, but I wasn't too sure if that was a TV movie or not, or a series. And obviously, like Tommy Knockers and stuff like that, I think. So yeah, it was slim pickings, really. But that's that. I mean, that's.
But it was good. It was a good choice. I thought it was a good choice of subject.
Yeah,
an interesting one.
It's nice to sort of challenge yourself and, you know, look for something maybe that you necessarily wouldn't have gone for. I mean, there's some great Stephen King movies out there, like we said, like, you know, Shawshank, The Mist, Stand By Me. But once you take them out of the equation, you're left with what we've got here. It's it's difficult but also fun. So
cool.
Yeah. So I guess that concludes best Stephen King movie starring Stephen King. So Pete, I guess, do you want to talk about maybe what we're going to be doing next episode?
I certainly will.
Fantastic.
So I managed to amass over the past few weeks quite a considerable list of subjects that I'd sort of go for. But I thought, as we'd done an underrated, my first pick was an underrated. Obviously, you've gone for a best sort of film. So I thought I'd go with a flip of my original subject in looking for something that's perhaps overrated. Mm-hmm. So the choice for the next subject, so for episode 3, we are going to be discussing what we consider to be the most overrated Best Picture winner at the Academy Awards.
Okay.
So that can include any film that won the Academy Award for Best Picture since its inception in 1927, and that's literally the only rule that there is.
Right.
So it has to be obviously something that won Best Picture, but you consider to be overrated. I did consider it sort of being the worst Best Picture, but I don't think, I think most Best Picture films have got some redeeming quality, else they wouldn't have even been considered. But
I would say most of them are fairly decent films, solid films that have won Best Picture.
But there's multiple reasons it can be overrated, whether it's something else better should have won that year, or if just generally it's not as good as people made out for whatever reason. How do you feel? Anything sort of popping in your head early on?
I think I'd have to go back and look at some Best Picture winners, because I'm not really that big into the Oscars. Obviously, I know some of the movies that have won, some movies that I actually like, that maybe have deserved it. So I can't think of anything at the minute. Then maybe I'd have to double check to make sure they actually won Best Picture before I said it. Really, I don't want to. I don't want to say, but I'm definitely going to have to look through that list, which I'm sure is a massive list if it goes back to the 1920s.
I think Birth of a Nation is on there, maybe. I don't know.
Oh God. Oh dear.
But as always, we'll be announcing through the social medias what our choices are a little bit in advance of the episode dropping, so that you lovely listeners have got an opportunity to view what we've selected if you've not seen them already, or if you just want to sort of catch up on them if you've maybe seen them before and want to refresh your memory on them. We'll also be looking to post a poll on this week's episode of Best Movie starring Stephen King, with my pick Pet Semetary and Liam's pick Creepshow, and just see who you maybe sort of agreed with, and also any sort of feedback that you want to give us, anything that you maybe would have selected, and just generally any sort of feedback we'll be itching for. Let us know what you think, and it's something we can take under advisement.
Yeah, hopefully we do get some feedback. I feel like with that French dude when they open Itchy and Scratchy Land in Europe.
My kids,
hello,
they need
Itchy and
more
Scratchy
wine.
Land open for business. My kids, they need wine.
So there we go. That's episode 2 of the Movie Duel podcast, all done and dusted. And for this week, it just leaves me to say goodbye, and for Liam to say,
sometimes Dad is better.
bye.